Did you know that King James never changed a single word in the Bible himself? The truth behind the King James Bible's translation might surprise you. Contrary to the popular belief, King James didn't have any direct control over any of the specific translation choices made by the 47 or so scholars of the 54 approved. His role was more about setting the guidelines that would ensure consistency and accuracy in this new translation. He issued a letter containing instructions for this Bible translation addressed to Richard Bancroft, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury, who then relayed these instructions to the translators. The original letter is preserved in the Lambeth Palace Library, the residence of the Archbishop of Canterbury. One of the most pivotal instructions was that this new translation should serve as a conservative revision of the 1568 Bishop's Bible. These were the instructions to the translators. 1. The ordinary Bible read in the church, commonly called the Bishop's Bible, to be followed and as little altered as the original will permit. 2. The names of the prophets and the holy writers, with the other names in the text, to be retained as near as may be, accordingly as they were vulgarly used. 3. The old ecclesiastical words to be kept, as the word church, not to be translated congregation. 4. When any word have diverse significations, that to be kept which have been most commonly used by the most eminent fathers, being agreeable to the propriety of the place and the analogies of faith. 5. The division of the chapters to be altered, either not at all or as little as may be, if necessity so require. 6. No marginal notes at all to be affixed, but only for the explanation of the Hebrew or Greek words which cannot, without some circumlocution, so briefly and fitly be expressed in the text. 7. Such quotations of places to be marginally set down as shall serve for the fit reference of one scripture to another. 8. Every particular man of each company to take the same chapter or chapters and, having translated or amended them severally by himself where he thinks good, all to meet together to confirm what they have done and agree for their part what shall stand. 9. As any one company have dispatched any one book in this manner, they shall send it to the rest, to be considered of seriously or judiciously, for his majesty is very careful on this point. 10. If any company upon the review of the book so sent shall doubt or differ upon any places, to send them word thereof, to note the places, and therewithal to send their reasons, to which they consent not, the difference to be compounded at the general meeting, which is to be of the chief persons of each company at the end of the work. 11. When any place of special obscurity is doubted of, letters to be directed by the authority to send to any learned man in the land for his judgment of such a place. 12. Letters to be sent from every bishop to the rest of his clergy, admonishing them of this translation in hand, and to move and change as many as, being skillful in the tongues, have taken pains in that kind, to send their particular observations to the company, either at Westminster, Cambridge, or Oxford, according as it was directed before in the king's letter to the archbishop. 13. The directors in each company to be the deans of Westminster and Chester for Westminster, and the king's professors in Hebrew and Greek in the two universities. 14. These translations to be used when they agree better with the text than the bishop's Bible, Tyndale's, Coverdale's, Matthew's, White churches, and the Geneva. And number 15, which was a rule added later, 3 or 4 of the most ancient and grave divines in either of the universities, not employed in translating, to be assigned to be overseers of the translation for the better observation of the 4th rule. Along with these guidelines, the translators received 40 unbound copies of the Great Bible and made their changes by scratching out words and writing each revision in the margins. These annotated copies were then collected, compared, and edited into a final manuscript. Another key instruction was that there should be no marginal notes, except for those necessary to explain the meaning of certain words. This guideline reflected King James's personal view of his dislike for the Geneva Bible, the most popular translation at the time, not just because of the reasons many of us may have thought or been taught. At the 1604 Hampton Court Conference, King James stated, "I have never seen a Bible well translated, and the worst is the Geneva." But his disapproval came more so because of its anti-monarchical marginal notes. To remedy this, King James insisted that the new translation have minimal annotations. Contrary to the misinformation, King James never decreed a ban of the Geneva Bible. We know this because King James's 14th instruction states these translations are to be used when they agree better with the text than the Bishop's Bible. Tyndale's, Coverdale's, Matthew's, Whitchurch's, and the Geneva. Contrary to the popular belief, the Geneva Bible was the most widely used Bible until the King James Version achieved widespread influence and popularity in the 19th and 20th centuries, which ultimately cemented its status as the most influential and widely recognized translation in the Bible's history. If you're getting value from this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss a new video. For even deeper biblical insights, check out my book, The Name Above All Names, where I delve deeper into the profound meanings and revelations concealed in biblical names, exploring how God's names reveals facets of his character and purpose in ways that transform our understanding of the Bible. Click the link in the description below to get your copy and continue your journey of discovery. I am thrilled to share with you this extraordinary piece of my antiquarian biblical collection. It's an original leaf from the 1611 King James Bible, first edition of the Apocrypha. This remarkable artifact was translated by the prestigious Second Cambridge Company as instructed in guideline number 12, led by John Duport, and comprised of 6 eminent scholars: John Boyce, William Branwaith, Andrew Downes, Jeremiah Radcliffe, Robert Ward, and Samuel Ward. Their meticulous work on the Apocrypha adds immense historical and scholarly value, making this leaf truly one of my most prized possessions. Have you wondered why these books were excluded from the Bible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. King James's third instruction was to retain traditional ecclesiastical terms in this new translation. This directive was a direct response to William Tyndale's 1526 translation, which controversially replaced terms such as church with congregation, love with charity, repent with due penitence, favor with grace, and elder with priest. Tyndale's translation challenged the established church's authority over religious practices and interpretation, aiming to make the Bible accessible and comprehensible to all, thereby promoting a direct personal connection with God. The influence of Tyndale's work on the King James Bible is profound. Approximately 75% of the Old Testament and 84% of the New Testament in the KJV directly mirrors, word for word, Tyndale's translation. This substantial overlap underscores Tyndale's enduring impact on English Bible translations and highlights his role as the pioneering figure in making the scriptures accessible to the English-speaking public. There were also other Bible translations which influenced the KJV. For instance, the Bishop's Bible was meant to be the base for the KJV, but its influence was less pronounced compared to Tyndale's work. Additionally, the Geneva Bible had a significant impact on many verses in the KJV. The Geneva Bible, also called the Pilgrim's Bible, was the primary Bible for English-speaking Protestants prior to the King James, and to no surprise, had an influence on the KJV's phrasing and interpretation. For example, the infamous expression, the Ten Commandments. It's essential to highlight again that King James himself didn't change a single word of the Bible's text. His influence was confined to setting 15 general guidelines for the translators. While it appears that Archbishop Bancroft considered these instructions, the reality of their application tells a different story. A perfect example is that although King James's first instruction specified that the Bishop's Bible was to be the project's cornerstone, instead, the most significant influence came from the 1526 William Tyndale Bible. The remarkable extent that which Tyndale's translation were used with approximately 75% of the Old Testament, 84% of the New Testament, reveals that King James's directives were more like suggestions. This flexibility, along with the massive influence of Tyndale's work, demonstrates that the king's instructions aimed primarily to ensure a consistent and reliable translation. free from political and theological bias. The translator's broad latitude in interpreting the king's instructions ultimately led to a Bible that balanced royal guidance and scholarly integrity. Samuel Ward, one of the translators from the Second Cambridge Company, later provided an account of the new translations process at the Synod of Dort in 1618. His account revealed that not all of King James's instructions were strictly followed. Ward reported that the rules laid down for the translators were of this kind. In the first place, caution was given that an entirely new version was not to be furnished, but an old version, long received by the church, to be purged from any blemishes and faults. To this end, there was to be no departure from the ancient translation unless the truth of the original text or emphasis demanded. Second, no notes were to be placed in the margins, but only parallel passages to be noted. Third, where a Hebrew or Greek word admits two meanings of a suitable kind, the one was to be expressed in the text, the other in the margin. The same to be done where a different reading was found in good copies. Fourth, the more difficult Hebraisms and Gracisms were consigned to the margin. Fifth, in the translation of the apocryphal books of Tobit and Judith, when any great discrepancy is found between the Greek text and the Old Latin Vulgate, they followed the Greek text by preference. Six, that words which it was anywhere necessary to insert into the text to complete the meaning were to be distinguished by another type, small Roman. Seventh, that new arguments should be prefixed to every book and new headings to every chapter. Eighth and last, a very perfect genealogy and map of the Holy Land should be joined to this work. It's important that I make it clear once again that King James himself did not change a single word of the Bible. His role was to provide the general instructions to guide the translators. But even so, according to Samuel Ward's account, Archbishop Bancroft seems to have filtered or possibly modified King James's instruction before giving them to the 6 translation companies. Ward was one of the scholars of the Second Cambridge Company assigned to translate the Apocrypha, which seems to have operated under the 8 guidelines I just mentioned. Examples of modifications can also be seen when we consider that King James specified that the bishop's Bible be the foundational text for the project, instruction number 1. But the influence of William Tyndale's translation was paramount in shaping what we now call the King James Bible. The extensive use of Tyndale's translation, approximately 3/4 of the Old Testament and even more of the New Testament, demonstrates that King James's instructions were more like suggestions. Furthermore, the retention of old ecclesiastical words in the KJV did not align with other Bibles of the period. Additionally, the KJV includes over 7,000 margin notes, many of which reference other known manuscript readings, further indicating the translator's discretion and the flexible nature of the king's directives. King James's instructions only aim to produce a consistent and reliable translation without the political and theological biases that characterize previous versions. If you found this video valuable or learned something new, please subscribe and hit that notification bell to ensure you never miss any of our new content. For even deeper biblical insights, check out my latest book, The Name Above All Names. Click the link in the description or below in the first pinned comment to get your copy and continue your journey of discovery.